Hey guys, it's Cece, and just in case you forgot, because it has been a while since I've done one, today is Wednesday, and that means that it is Top 5 Wednesday. Yes, I have not done a Top 5 Wednesday in a while, but this topic was just especially fun to me, so I knew I had to jump on and do it. Top 5 Wednesday, in case you've forgotten, was created by Lainey over at Ginger Reads Lainey, and I will leave the link to her channel, as well as to the Top 5 Wednesday Goodreads group down below so you can go and check it out and watch some other Top 5 Wednesday videos. Yes, it's all very, very exciting, but the topic that got me so interested to jump back into Top 5 Wednesday was talking about our least favorite books in our favorite series. And this list was sort of hard to narrow down. I came up with 6, and then finally, through some tough work, I narrowed it down to 5. So let's just start right off, coming in at number 5. At number 5, I thought we would just get this one out of the way, and I thought I'd talk about Harry Potter. My least favorite book in the Harry Potter series is The Chamber of Secrets. This is book 2 in the whole series, and it's nothing necessarily against Chamber of Secrets, it's just that I think it's the weakest one. This is probably due to the fact that the first 2 are the most childish of the series, and so they come across a bit weaker, but I think that the first one gives you such a good introduction to the world of Harry Potter and the magic, and I'm still always swept up in it. But when I read Chamber of Secrets, it just reads a little too young for me, and not quite enough happens. It's shorter, it's written younger, and it's not really doing as much that's important. I mean, of course, you get a lot of information still, but yeah. Overall, while I still really love Chamber of Secrets, because of course the Harry Potter series is my favorite, I think that the Chamber of Secrets is the least fun for me to read, personally. It feels really weird the way I'm doing this because I'm not like building up to my favorite series. Harry Potter is my favorite series, but I talked about it first. I'm kind of all over the place because now I'm going to talk about my second favorite series, so I don't really know what this organization is, but whatever. Coming in at number 4. At number 4, I want to talk about the Chaos Walking trilogy by Patrick Ness, and I think that the weakest book in this trilogy is the second book, The Ask and the Answer. Now, like Chamber of Secrets, I gave all 3 of these books in this series 5 stars, so I am in no way saying that The Ask and the Answer is some, like, pitiful excuse for a book. No, I think it deserves as high a rating as the first one and as the third one, even though I like the first and the third one better. But the reason that The Ask and the Answer is my least favorite in the series is because of its place in the series. I think that the middle book in a trilogy often has a very hard job to do, because it is getting you from point A to the end, and that can be very difficult to manage without sometimes coming across as more boring or feeling like you're just on the road to something bigger. Second books in a trilogy have a real hard time, and I think that while The Ask and the Answer is great and really exciting, I think is the least exciting of the 3 books, and while it's really well written, I spent most of my time being like, come on, let's get there, let's get to what's happening, because I was really invested, but I felt like stuff wasn't happening as quickly as it happened in the first one, and then when I was reading the third book, I was like, yeah, the second one was definitely slower. So, I mean, of course, like I said, give this 5 stars still, but it's still just my least favorite in the trilogy. Coming in at number 3. At number 3, I want to talk about the Books of Bairn series by Shannon Hale. The first book is The Goose Girl, in case you don't know, and it's a fantastic series, but my least favorite of the 4 books is actually the 4th book, Forestborn. What works about the series is that in each book, it is narrated by a different character who you have met in the book before. So the first book is narrated by a girl named Isi, the second book is narrated by a girl named Enna, who Isi knew, and then there's Razzo, who is Enna and Isi's friend, and then the last book is narrated by Razzo's sister. And my main problem with this book is that it dramatically changed the tone from the rest of the series. They all had this really kind of fun and playful vibe, but Razzo's sister has like never been to the city. She's always grown up in this forest, and she has a very lyrical way of speaking, and it's just much different from the other 3 books. Not to say that there's like anything dramatically wrong with the book, it just kind of creates a disconnect from the first 3 books to this 4th one. Overall, it is to say I still think that this is a pretty good book. It's just definitely the weakest in the series. Next up, coming in at number 2. At number 2, we are going to talk about one of my all-time favorites. I guess that's what this whole video is, and that is the Graceling Realm series by Kristin Cashore, and my least favorite book is Fire. Technically, this is a series of companion novels, so there is no correct order to read them in. However, Fire did come out in the middle of 3 books, and I think that it suffers from book 2 syndrome. What really is interesting about this series is, again, it is a series of companion novels, and what I think works less about Fire is that Graceling and Bitterblue could be considered direct sequels, and Fire takes place in a totally different time, and so you read it after reading Graceling and you're like, oh, none of my favorite characters are here, I have to get introduced to this world all over again. What about Katza? What about Poe? And that's very frustrating. Also, I don't like Fire nearly as much as I like Katza, or even as much as I like Bitterblue. I think that those 2 people are just stronger characters in general, so when I was reading Fire, I was kind of like, but I want my other female characters back. It was an interesting addition to the world, and it made more sense, obviously, going into book 3, because you get a ton of the background necessary in Fire that you kind of need going into Bitterblue, but it's just my least favorite in the series overall because it has my least favorite characters in it. And finally, coming in at number 1. So my number 1 spot, I'm going to talk about The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, and I had a very hard time narrowing it down, but I think that my least favorite in this series is book 2, Eldest. I had a hard time with this one because for a while I was tempted to say book 4, which is the final book in the series, but I think it's just been too long since I read that book, and I only read it the one time, and so I feel like I'm not judging it fairly. I read it immediately after it came out, after I just marathoned the rest of the series, and I think that it may have been too fresh, so I think someday I'll have to do a reread and actually determine how I feel. But the reason that I decided to put Eldest here instead is because when there was just 3 books, Eldest was definitely my least favorite. First of all, it's super long. They're all long books. Technically, Brissinger and Inheritance are longer. And the problem with Eldest is that it is so long and like nothing happens. Don't get me wrong, a ton of super important stuff happens, but it takes hundreds of pages for those things to happen. There is like this extended training sequence for the lead character Aragon where he's just like learning, and it goes on for so long. It goes on for like 3/4 of the book, and by the time you get to the end, you're like, I swear if something doesn't happen, I'm gonna throw this book, which is really frustrating. I think that Eldest has one of the strongest endings, honestly. I really love the end of Eldest, but I think that it just stops itself up by being too slow and taking a bit too much time in its Luke becomes a Jedi training sequence, which is definitely what it's reminiscent of. But that's okay, because then you go into Brissinger, and Brissinger's my favorite of the series, and it just perks you right back up. Okay guys, there you go. Those are my top 5 least favorite books in my favorite series in kind of a weird order, because that is not the order my favorite series go in. If you're curious, I would say if we were gonna go like least to most, actually, it would probably go Books of Bayern, Graceling, Inheritance, Chaos Walking, Harry Potter, if that's the order you actually want building up to my favorite series. That's how I would put them. Anyway, let me know in comments what some of your least favorite books in your favorite series are. Especially, I'm always curious to hear about this. What is your least favorite Harry Potter book in the Harry Potter series, if you've read them? And if you haven't, of course, what are your least favorite books in your favorite series? I'm so happy that I got to do Top 5 Wednesday again. I love doing these videos, so hopefully I'll be able to do a couple more of them in April. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!